Hey guys, this is my book review of Roomies by Christina. My name is Jenny, so let's get started. So this book is about two characters, Holland, which is the girl, and this boy named Calvin. So Holland has been watching this guy Calvin playing at the subway on her way to work every morning. And she's been obsessed with him. Like 6 months she has been listening to his music, watching him from afar, and she really does like him, but he does not know she exists. So basically what happens is that one day she decides, I'm going to come up and approach him. So the one day when she decides to approach him, though, is the one day where things go wrong. Because that one day when she decides to talk to him is the one day she almost gets hit by a train. Yes, guys, a train. Some mystery stranger, I don't even know anymore, but he literally pushes her towards a train track and she almost gets hit by a train, but thankfully Calvin goes and saves her. And he's a musician and stuff. But when the police arrive, they obviously think she, tried to physically jump off and try to kill herself. So they give her like pamphlets and stuff and really think that she's like about to kill herself, but she knows the truth and he knows the truth. So she goes to see him and asks him why did he not tell the police what actually happened. Little does she know there is a reason, but that's not until later in the book. So while I was reading this book, it was different than most books I had read before, because it was kind of like a love story, but kind of started off in like a weird direction, because this book is basically about these two people that meet, and got the guy Calvin. He is here in the country illegally. He came on a student visa, but it's been 4 years since he was supposed to go back, so he's illegally in the country. And he's an amazing musician, and she has been following him and listening to him for like 6 months. And after he saves her, she actually gets an audition for him with her uncle, which is this top musical producer, and of course he knows him. So she gets him the audition, but little do they know that actually her uncle offers him the job, but he can't take it because he's illegally in this country. So this character, her boss, I think, Brian, I don't like him at all. He's just really annoying, and his ideas are crazy. He came out with this crazy idea that Holland should marry him to keep him in the country so that he can play in the musical. Obviously her uncle, which is also the music producer, he thinks it's a bad idea, so he automatically tells him no, because obviously he thinks it's a crazy idea. But as the story slowly begins, she starts to think, maybe this might not be the worst idea in the world, but of course you really think it's probably a bad idea. Like marrying somebody you don't know, and also you've just met, even though you've seen them for like 6 months straight, he doesn't know that. And she thinks that this is the best way to repay her uncle, because her uncle has been her supporter her whole life. He pays for her apartment, he gave her a job at his company, so she really thinks she owes him a lot. So she decides to do this for him. It gets complicated, but I wanted to read you some little snippets of what was going on in this book and what I thought was funny. There was this moment in the book where after Brian, her boss, suggests that, she marry him, and like when she goes home, she starts to come up with a pro and con list, and she knows this is crazy, but she still goes to it. So I'm going to read you some of her pros and cons. Con: I don't know him. That I totally agree with. You don't know this dude, and you're about to marry him, and you know it's a bad idea, but you're still gonna do it anyway. I personally would not put myself in that position, but this is a book. Con: this idea is varying shades of illegal. Of course it is illegal, because you can't marry someone just to marry them, keep them in the country. And her pro was that her uncle Robert wants Calvin to be in the show, even though he'll never admit it. He really wants him there, but he doesn't want to put her in that position. And then she's like, pro, I sort of really want to do it. But then her con was, but would I feel pathetic having had a crush on him all this time? I go with what she said, where she says like a con. She's like would it be really pathetic to like, you know, go through with this and like know that he doesn't like her in that way? I still think that it's a crazy idea, but obviously she goes through with it, and she invites him to lunch, and she proposes the idea to him. And his reaction to the idea, he obviously thinks she's joking, and he honestly doesn't get what she gets out of it, because he even said so in the book that he gets to have his dream come true. But what does she get out of it? And the one thing she constantly says that she's getting out of this whole situation is that she gets to impress and make her uncle proud of her. But obviously I don't really think, I feel like that's kind of like one of her motivations for doing it, but she also has a thing where she does like him, so she is kind of stuck between the idea of liking him, knowing it's wrong, and also trying to help her uncle. And she decides to propose to him at lunch, and at first he thinks she's joking. He's like, you're joking, right? But then she's like, let's be serious, it'll only be for a year, and you know. And then he's like, what if you happen to meet somebody in the next 12 months that you really want to date? What are we going to do then? But then she's like, you know what, if you want to date somebody on the side? And then he's like, no. So I think that's when like the idea really sort of gets real. But there's one moment where it gets real, where he does agree to it, but on one condition. He says that she has to go out with him, because they're going to be living together for a year and they have to prove that they're in love. So he says, let's go out on one date and let's just see where it takes us. If we like each other, we'll do it. If we don't, then we know that we couldn't, you know, pretend to be in love. So he takes her to this club where he's performing, and basically at the end of it, he introduces one of his bosses to her as his fiance, and that's where it starts to get real. And towards like the book, they start to, you know, have the trials of living together, what to do. She lets him sleep on the couch, but you know that doesn't last very long, and they end up sleeping together, and things get very complicated because she starts to realize that her feelings may be leaning toward love more than just like. But she doesn't know how he feels about her. She thinks that he is, you know, making this situation the best that he can by making it fun for her or making it worth it to her. And she doesn't know exactly how her feelings for him is and how his feelings for her is. So they start to, you know, get in the flow of being in a relationship and they're actually starting to get more closer, but that slowly starts to, you know, fade when she decides not to tell her parents, but she's like debating if she should. But then he goes and tells his parents that he got married, and then his mother and his sister that has a very, I don't know how to explain it, but has like a degenerative disease where she's very, I think she has cerebral palsy, I don't remember what it was, but, and their medical expenses are so much, so they decide to come from, I forgot where they're from, but they come to where they're living and like surprise. But there's one trick to it. He told his mother and his sister that he married Amanda. See, Amanda was a ex-girlfriend of his a couple months back before he even met Holland, and he decides to give the name Amanda to Holland and pretend Amanda is Holland to his mother. So when his mother comes, he's like, oh hey, Amanda, how are you? And she's totally confused. She's like, what is going on? So then he finally comes to the truth and tells her, I told my mom about Amanda. My mom knew about Amanda, so I just thought it would be easier if I just said I married Amanda. And she's like, how can you expect me to lie to your mom and to your sister about being somebody I'm not? And she's just completely torn up with the idea. So she decides, you know what, I'm done. So she breaks it off. And that's like one of their biggest fights that they had, and it like really tears them apart. But obviously they do get back together and everything slowly gets better. But I feel like that moment, for me at least, was the hardest to read, because like she finally came to a realization that she was in love with him. She just didn't know if he loved her too. And to hear him lie about who she is to his parents really broke the straw on the camel's back, because she was so devastated about it, because she started to feel like this could maybe be real, that maybe they can be together. But then when she found it out, it just slowly got worse. And throughout this whole time after they were separated for I think like 2 months, and that was the hardest for her, because she just couldn't imagine her life without him, and she was just so devastated. And the reason why I love this book so much was because it's not like a real story, but it kind of gives you kind of like the real raw emotion of like meeting somebody and getting to know them, even though in their case they got married before they got to know each other. But it shows like the real raw emotions of getting to know somebody, and having that person lie to you is, I think, one of the hardest parts of the book for me, was because watching her realize that he may not have the same feelings that she does, he may not have the same feelings that she does for him, really broke her. And she completely, like, I think, feel like shut down in that moment. And another reason why I love this book so much is, I don't know, it's so much more real than other romance books that I've read, because this is a situation that we've heard these things happen before, but I feel like having these two people meet in that kind of circumstance, because I've read books before where like two people have just got married for an unknown reason, not like to stay in the country, but it kind of reminded me a little bit about the movie The Proposal, but kind of different, because not really her boss, but it works. But I feel like the book, it's amazing, and it's so raw. I know I keep saying that, but it really is. And one of the other reasons why I just love it, that's one of the strongest moments from the book, is seeing the bond between her and her uncle, and seeing how strong it is. But also not just seeing how strong it is, but how real it is, because some people have stronger relationships with different people in their family, and for her it's with her uncle. And just seeing how much she cares about her uncle and how much her uncle cares for her, I feel like that was one of the favorite parts in the book for me. And also seeing the love blossom between Holland and Calvin, because at first I feel like they liked each other, like just like as like an attraction, but as the story like progresses more, you get to see that they're showing their real self to each other, and I feel like that's important, especially in like books like this where the story is kind of real and kind of set in like real life, but not really real. So I feel like this has like elements of like real life, but also has elements of like fiction, and I really like especially romance books like that, and I feel like that's interesting. So I guess that's all my thoughts on what I had in the book.